It's the stuff of nightmares. You're a hardworking medical professional, doing your best to save lives and help people in need, but then it happens. A patient arrives with an unknown ailment, and as you try to diagnose them, you suddenly fall violently ill. It seems like magic, like something out of a horror movie, but sometimes frightening things like this happen in real life, and one such case has puzzled doctors and scientists for decades. Let's take a look at one of the strangest medical mysteries ever recorded, the death of a young woman whose illness spread to 20 medical professionals. This is the incredible tale of the toxic lady. Our story begins in 1994 in the city of Riverside, California. At the time, the town was home to Riverside General Hospital, a busy medical center serving the surrounding area. On the evening of February, the hospital's emergency room was a hive of activity. Like any other busy ER, its staff were familiar with treating everything from minor injuries to life-threatening emergencies. However, they were about to be confronted with something they never expected. At around 6:30 p.m., paramedics arrived at the ER carrying a 31-year-old woman named Gloria Ramirez. She was suffering from advanced cervical cancer that had already spread to her lungs and other parts of her body. Just days before, she had given birth to twins and had been in a lot of pain lately. The paramedics explained that when they arrived at her home, she was weak and confused. She was struggling to breathe and her skin was covered in a strange oil slick. After stabilizing Gloria, the paramedics brought her to the emergency room. At first glance, there was nothing particularly unusual about the patient. Weighing 70 kilograms and standing 163 centimeters tall, she looked like a typical 31-year-old woman. But soon, the ER staff would discover that there was more to Gloria than met the eye. As the medical team tried to stabilize the patient, they noticed that her skin was clammy and oily. The sheen almost looked like a fine layer of oil covering her. According to reports, it also smelled faintly of garlic. But these oddities were put down to Gloria's condition, as she appeared to be dying. Soon after arriving at the ER, one of the attending nurses noticed that the instruments being used to monitor Gloria's vital signs were reacting abnormally. Specifically, the blood pressure cuff was showing wildly fluctuating readings, suggesting something unusual was going on. But no one could have predicted what happened next. As the medical team struggled to keep Gloria alive, they grew increasingly alarmed by the situation. While working on the patient, several nurses and doctors began feeling faint. At first it was assumed that this was due to the stressful situation and the fact that many of the staff had been working long shifts. However, this explanation didn't hold up. Soon, more medical professionals started experiencing troubling symptoms. What makes this case especially disturbing is that the symptoms affected a wide range of medical professionals, both those who were directly treating Gloria and those who were in close proximity to her. This included a nurse, a respiratory therapist, another nurse, 2 orderlies, a physician, and several clerks and technicians. All of them started to experience unsettling symptoms. These ranged from mild tremors to sudden weakness, disorientation, and even temporary paralysis of their arms and legs. Several staff members collapsed and became unresponsive, requiring their colleagues to call for help. But what could have caused such a strange set of symptoms? It's important to note that none of the medical staff who fell ill had direct contact with Gloria's wounds or bodily fluids, leading to speculation that the cause might be airborne or perhaps even psychic. However, investigations would ultimately rule these possibilities out. That's because while some of the staff had been near Gloria when symptoms started, others were stricken while in separate rooms or outside the building altogether. This indicated that the problem wasn't limited to those who had been in direct contact with the patient or each other. In fact, one of the first people to become ill was a radiologist who reviewed Gloria's X-rays without ever seeing her in person. Even stranger, the symptoms seemed to come and go in waves. At times, several staff members would collapse within seconds of each other, only for things to quiet down again shortly after. This pattern suggested that whatever was causing these reactions was intermittent, possibly tied to Gloria's breathing or other involuntary bodily functions. But what exactly was happening here? The sudden onset of these symptoms led to a massive disruption at the hospital. With so many medical professionals rendered incapacitated, hospital management had to evacuate the ER and divert ambulances to other facilities. This meant that even patients with non-urgent conditions couldn't receive treatment. Such disruptions are rare, even in well-resourced hospitals, highlighting the impact this event had on hospital operations. It was clear that something was very wrong, but the nature of the problem remained a mystery. Amidst the chaos, the medical team focused on Gloria, who had been placed in isolation due to her mysterious symptoms. As the night wore on, Gloria continued to deteriorate, passing away just 45 minutes after arriving at the hospital. Her death certificate listed the cause as respiratory failure secondary to metastatic carcinoma, meaning that her cancer was the primary reason for her death. But the full story was far from over. Following Gloria's death, the hospital summoned the county hazardous materials team. Believing that there may have been an environmental cause for the staff's illnesses, they meticulously checked the emergency room for any signs of chemical spills or leaks, but found nothing. This eliminated the possibility of exposure to toxins in the air or on surfaces, leaving the source of the problem unclear. Adding to the intrigue, lab tests revealed traces of dimethylsulfone in Gloria's blood. Under certain circumstances, dimethylsulfone can break down into dimethyl sulfate, a potent toxin known to affect the central nervous system. It is used primarily as a chemical intermediate in manufacturing and is uncommonly found in the human body. The presence of dimethylsulfone in Gloria's bloodstream raised questions about whether it played a role in the incidents that night, but it also pointed to a broader concern. How did this compound get into her body in the first place? One prevailing theory is that Gloria may have been using dimethyl, an over-the-counter pain reliever popular in the 1980s and 90s. People often use DMSO as a topical painkiller, applying it directly to the skin. However, it's important to note that DMSO hasn't been approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for this use, and claims about its effectiveness remain largely anecdotal. Some believe that when combined with oxygen and the medical treatments Gloria received in the ER, the DMSO may have undergone a bizarre chemical reaction, turning into the poisonous dimethyl sulfate gas that sickened the staff. However, not everyone is convinced by this explanation. Some experts argue that the conditions required to create dimethyl sulfate inside a human body are unlikely and there is no evidence that this has happened elsewhere. Others suggest that the incident could have been a case of mass hysteria, triggered by stress, fear, and suggestion. For instance, once the first few medical professionals started experiencing symptoms, it's possible that others who were exposed to them subsequently developed similar symptoms. Ultimately, though, this doesn't explain why the staff were affected differently. Why did some become briefly paralyzed while others experienced only slight tremors? Whatever the true cause, the incident highlights the complex relationship between mind and body. Clearly, the medical team was not imagining the symptoms, yet their manifestation seems to have been influenced by psychological factors. Fear and stress likely exacerbated the situation, leading to a rapid escalation of symptoms among the staff. This aspect of the case continues to be explored by psychologists and medical professionals alike. For Gloria's family, the media attention was devastating. To them, she was not just the toxic woman, she was a mother, a sister, and a daughter. They have long argued that her dignity was lost in the sensational headlines. But the case of the toxic lady remains a compelling mystery. It challenges conventional thinking about the origins of illness and the power of the human psyche. In the aftermath of this incident, hospitals tightened safety protocols and medical staff received extensive training on responding to such emergencies. But the true lesson remains the same. In the field of medicine, as in life, there are some things we may never fully understand. Now check out the horrifying mystery of the Phantom Hitchhiker, or click this other video instead.